Hi everyone, welcome back to the second ever video on my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be giving a brief overview of basically my financial strategy, my financial plan, possibly to reach financial freedom someday. Maybe not, super fire, retire early, everything, but eventually. So, jumping right into it, basically, financial freedom, for a quick definition, is that you don't need to work to live. If you are financially free, that means the money you own, the assets you own, are generating enough income so that you can choose not to work. This makes you free basically from finances because you are not worried about making money so that you can live, so that you can survive and sustain your lifestyle. So you have the option to work if you want to, but you don't have to. Basically, you're just not having to worry about the money. You're free from those worries. At least that's the way I see it. Is you still have to have money because money makes the world go round, but you're free from it, and then you can now make a lot of decisions that previous decisions that would involve, like, oh, do I have enough money for this or blah blah blah. You don't have to worry about those decisions, and you can make those decisions differently now, knowing that your money is covered. So, first off, any good strategy starts with a budget. Very soon after starting my first full time job, I downloaded the YNAB app, which is YNAB. You need a budget. This has been a super helpful app because part of being financially free is you need to, you know, basically cut down your expenses so that you can invest in assets that will produce income for you in the future. And the best way to do that is to live on less than you earn. So YNAB is basically counts every dollar that you spend. You can connect your bank accounts right into the app so that every time you spend money, you see it in YNAB. And YNAB makes sure you categorize each purchase into a different category in your budget. So you can make a category for like your needs. So that could be like your rent, your groceries, student loan payments. Then it'll be like your wants. So being able to eat out or go shopping or buy some clothes. And you can categorize all these however you want, set it up for yourself. I can make a video going more in depth than YNAB, but once you set it up, then every time you make a purchase, you categorize that purchase, and it'll show you, if I set aside $100 a month for eating out, and I go to McDonald's and I spend $10, it'll show up in the app. I'm like, hey, that $10 to McDonald's, that is my eating out budget. I have $90 left for the month, and you can set it up monthly, yearly, weekly, whatever you need to do, and connect all your accounts so you can really keep track of all your money. One of the things that YNAB has been really helpful for me is keeping your expenses low, because if you want to reach financial independence, like I was saying, you need to have money investing so your money is working harder than you are. But to build up to that point where you have all that money that's, you're owning assets and it's producing income for you, you need to be investing and saving money. And the best way to invest and save money, first, is to make more money that you can invest. And second, which is easier, is to just spend less money. If you can spend less money, you'll have more left over to buy, assets that'll produce income. So I really focus for myself on keeping my expenses low. So I try to avoid debt, which is like student debt, car debt. I'm not going out and buying boats or overspending on my credit card that'll, have a bunch of interest on credit card debt. Living with roommates is important. If you can live with your parents, I know people live with their parents after graduating and working full time. They don't have to pay rent. That really helps save on expenses. Another important one is cooking at home. When I first got YNAB, that's one of the realizations that helped me. That's why the app was so helpful, is because you can see, whoa, if I'm spending $500 a month on fast food, that's something I can easily cut out. It'll show you, your categories of your spending, and it's a lot easier. I know a lot of people will say, oh, just don't drink your $5 Starbucks every day. And yeah, that's true, but it's on a case-by-case basis. You can find categories where you're spending a lot more than $5 a day. It's really better to hit, if you can reduce the expenses of what you're spending the most on. So if you can go from paying $2,000 in rent for your own apartment to $1,000 or less by living with roommates, that cuts down way more than just buying fewer $5 coffees. If you can save over, $1,000 a month by changing your living situation, that's a lot easier to keep expenses low. And like I checked on earlier, make sure you avoid debt. So if you're taking out student loans, You can do the community college route first, then go to college. Don't buy cars that you can't afford. Try to buy cars with cash, drive cheap cars. Don't get a bunch of depreciating assets. Don't spend your money on things that aren't going to make you money or help you live. Now, beyond the budgeting part and keeping expenses low, when you keep your expenses low, less than the money you make, you'll have money left over. So with the money left over, what I am doing is saving it and investing. And saving it partially is through a high yield savings account. So I have a high yield savings account, and basically the only difference a high yield savings account has from a regular savings account is that it has a greater APY or interest rate. So when my money used to sit in my regular bank account, savings account, or checkings, I was making 0.01% interest. So for every dollar, I'm getting like a penny back. It was very, very bad. Or even less than a penny, 0.01% interest. So basically nothing. But when you go into a high yield savings account now, I'm making over 3% APY or interest, on my money per year. So $100 every year will turn $3 more. And what's great about this is that it's gaining you some interest. So you're getting a little bit off the top, which is a good bonus, but it's not even the main thing, because I use my high yield savings account as an emergency fund. So I'm saving up money out of my paycheck every 2 weeks. I have an automatic transfer go. So money, when I get paid, it gets transferred into my high yield savings account, and I can use that as basically my emergency fund. So if I were to have a great emergency and I need a bunch of cash, I have it in my high yield savings account. And it's important to not put an emergency fund into something, even though my high yield savings is giving me interest and it's growing, it's a bad idea to put your emergency fund into things like stocks, because they're a little more illiquid and they're harder to, sell the stocks to actually get access to the money so that you can actually spend the money on your emergency fund. But if you have just a high yield savings account, it's a lot easier to get that money out to be able to spend it when you have an emergency. So the next thing I'm using for my investment, that's the high yield savings, is in the name, it's savings. But the most important thing, that what's actually going to get you financially free, is investing. So I think my first investment account that I opened up was a Roth IRA. As soon as I was working my first hourly job when I was younger, I opened a Roth IRA and I was contributing money to it. And if you don't know how a Roth IRA works, the money you contribute, you get taxed on. So if you work for 40 hours a week, you get taxed on that money when you get paid, and then that money afterwards, it's yours to spend on anything, so you can put it in your Roth IRA. The caveat is they tax you on the money first, you put it in your Roth IRA, and then when you're, I don't know what the age is, 59 and a half, you can start taking out of your Roth IRA, and it's tax-free. So you're not paying like a income tax, capital gains tax when you take the money out of your Roth IRA. The only caveat is that there's a yearly limit of $7,000, and it changes every year, so it might go up as inflation increases. But because of the tax advantages of a Roth IRA, I would really suggest to max it out if you can, or put as much money as you can into the Roth IRA, because then when you hit retirement age, you won't be taxed on it. So I also have an automatic transfer going right into my Roth IRA, and I'm buying low-cost index funds. I'll make another video going over what kind of low-cost index funds I actually buy and I actually hold. But basically, the moral of the story is have some kind of, portfolio where you have index funds, so you're diversified in the broad stock market, not even just the S&P 500, but the whole stock market, even international stocks, and just have them be low cost, so that as you're contributing money, you're buying these index funds and they're growing, they don't have high expense ratios where that's cutting into your the growth and your earnings. The next retirement account I opened was a 401k through my employer. So once I graduated college, I started working. My employer offers a 401k, which basically is just an employer-sponsored retirement account, where how it works is that a lot of times your employer will offer a match. So you can set aside a percentage of your paycheck, and then your employer will match the money you contribute from your paycheck. So it's basically like they're paying you extra money on top of your salary or your hourly wages, just for saving for your retirement. So for my employer, they match like up to 5%, and then the next 3%, they match some of it. So I contribute 8% of my paycheck right to the 401k. So 8% of my paycheck is going right into it, and then my employer is also contributing some more extra money. And within the 401k, similar to the Roth IRA, I'm really just looking for a low cost index fund so I can diversify. A lot of people in 401ks have the option to invest in target date retirement funds. And that's a topic for another video too, but my 2 cents on it right now is that I'm trying to pursue a more aggressive growth strategy, and I don't need to live off this money that I'm investing. So I'm able to take more risk because what target date retirement funds do is, as you pick a date, so we'll say like 2060, in 35 years if you're going to retire. And basically, as you get closer to that target date or that year, the people that manage that fund will shift the asset allocation from being more growth oriented stocks to holding more bonds that are more, they're less volatile, they're safer investments, but they might have less returns. So you're trading in less risk, but you'll have less reward. So high risk, high reward. And I'm okay with taking on higher risk because I'm young, so I don't need the money I'm investing now. It'll be decades in the future when I'm retiring. So I'm okay with taking more risk now for potentially higher growth in the long run. The next retirement account or investment account I have is an HSA, or a health savings account. This is also through my employer-sponsored health insurance. And it's a type of account that is even more tax advantaged than a Roth IRA, because a Roth IRA, you're taxed on the money, then you can put it into the account, then you get it tax-free. HSA, however, you can put money into the account without getting taxed on it, and you can take money out of the account without getting taxed on it. The only caveat is that its contribution limit is even lower than the Roth IRA, so it's lower than $7,000. I think for me it's around $4,000 a year. And it also has a slightly more limited option of what funds and stocks you can actually buy in it, similar to a 401k. You don't have access to just the whole stock market like you would in a Roth IRA or a regular brokerage account. But because it's more tax advantaged, I am also setting up automatic transfers to my health savings account to max that out because of the advantages it has. You might as well take advantage of it, even though there's a smaller contribution limit. Take advantage, put it in there, get the tax advantage, and I'm doing the same thing. Low cost index funds, trying to just grow, and I'm okay with a little bit of risk and volatility as the years go by. And finally, my newest investment account is an individual brokerage account. So the reason I kept this for last is because it's kind of the last account you need to open. It doesn't have any tax benefits like a Roth IRA. There's no employer match like the 401k, or like I said, no tax benefits similar to the HSA. So you're taxed on the money you earn, then you put them into your individual brokerage, and then the money you actually make from, buying and selling stocks, that can also be taxed. So it's like basically the low-hanging fruit, the last one you want to put money into. So basically I just fund my brokerage account with any money I have left over after I have budgeted my needs with YNAB and spent money on, rent, groceries, gas for my car, all that kind of stuff. Then I have the automatic transfers going into my Roth IRA, 401k, HSA, make sure those are all squared away and I'm getting the contribution limits or the match from my employer. Then whatever money I have left over that I don't need to live off of, I can put in my brokerage account. And with this, I'm doing the same exact thing, just buying index funds, low cost. I'm okay with some volatility. I just want some growth. And an important thing to note is because the individual brokerage doesn't have tax advantages, the other accounts like the 401k, the Roth IRA, a lot of times they will have rules that say when you can start withdrawing from the account. Like you might have to be 55 or 59 or, later, even older. But in individual brokerage, there is no age limit to be able to start selling to make money off your investments in the account. And why that's important for financial freedom is because if someone were to retire at 30 or 40 or even 50, if they needed to live off their 401k or Roth IRA, they'd be getting penalized for taking the money out so they could live off of it. But if you have an individual brokerage, yes, you're going to get taxed, but it's better to start drawing out of your individual brokerage and just get taxed on it at the capital gains rate, which is lower than income. And then once you hit the retirement age, then you can start taking out of your 401k or Roth IRA. But I think the individual brokerage account is important because if I were to retire early, that's where I'd be drawing a lot of my money out of. And same thing with the target date funds in the 401k, as I was saying. You can rebalance your portfolio in your individual brokerage so that as you get closer to retirement, you can move away from, more aggressive growth stocks or index funds into more conservative bonds that are less volatile, have less returns, but they won't be losing money if something bad happens. So that was just a quick overview of my plan for financial freedom. It really comes down to, budgeting so that you have enough money for your needs, trying to keep your expenses low, avoiding debt. Then with that leftover money, save some for emergencies, for, big life events. That could even be for a down payment on a house or a new car, buying in cash. So save as much as you can, but then most importantly, you need to be investing. If you can increase the percent of your income that's going towards your investments, that'll speed up your progress on the path to financial freedom and even give you the opportunity to retire early, or just, not have to worry about money, because the work you're doing now, the earlier to start you can start, the better, and the more money you can put in, the better to achieving your financial goals. So let me know if you have any questions about my plan for financial freedom and my finances in the comments. I'd love to talk about it, and I'll make plenty more videos going into more details. So if you need specific more details, those will be coming. Drop questions in the comments. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe, drop a like.